All right, hello, and welcome to Handshake's Hidden Features. My name is Rebecca Nelson, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. This webinar is brought to you by the Career Planning and Development Center at Webster University, which is a centralized career development office located in St. Louis, Missouri. And we provide individualized career development support to both undergraduate and graduate students across Webster's network of campuses and online programs. Today's webinar is being recorded, and a follow-up email will be sent to attendees by the end of the day tomorrow. And that's going to include the presentation materials for our topic today and a link to this recording. And that'll be sent to the email address associated with your Handshake account. So additional email information in that post-webinar communication is going to highlight upcoming Career Planning and Development Center events, and also how to schedule a career advising appointment with your designated career advisor through Handshake. So to assist with the sound quality of our webinar today, please keep your microphone muted throughout the duration of the event. If you have any questions, please type those into the chat box, and I will be checking those throughout, and we'll also reserve time at the end of our session to share any questions with our presenter. Our presenter today is Carrie Lee. She's the Assistant Director for Career Development and Career Advisor to students in the Walker School of Business and Technology and the School of Education. And so she works individually with students in a multitude of career development areas, including our topic today, which is about all of the lesser known features of Handshake and how they can assist you in your career development. So with that, I will hand it over to Carrie.
Great. Well, thank you, Rebecca. Welcome, everybody. So I just wanted to give you all a sense of some of those features that I'm going to be talking about today. So the main areas that we're going to be talking about are some advanced search filters that you can use when searching for opportunities, a variety of ways to research employers, going global, which is an external resource that's connected through Handshake. And then finally, different ways to connect and learn from students and alumni from Webster University, as well as other universities. So the majority of this webinar, I'm just gonna share my screen with you and walk through the steps just like you would see if you were looking at your Handshake account. So I will go ahead and do that now and share my Handshake screen with you. All right, so hopefully you all can see that. So this is your main landing page when you log into Handshake. So the Jobs tab is probably the area that most of you are most familiar with. So most of Handshake is pretty intuitive. You know, you can clearly search for any keywords like marketing, education, whatever that might be for you, selecting the type of role. So if you're looking for full-time internship, on-campus jobs, if you're looking for a position here at Webster, you know, maybe for an RA or working at the University Center. And then there's this All Filters tab over here. And so when you click this, there are those same key filters that you saw earlier, but you can also drill down and get a lot more specific. So for instance, you can look for a specific job role, which classifies all of those postings. So when employers post positions, they have to choose the type of role it is. So for instance, you can see here like software developers and engineers. So that helps kind of group opportunities more, where each company has their own job titles, but that can give you a better sense of different opportunities that you might be interested in. You can also search by industry. So, you know, if you're interested in going into consulting, you can use that and see management consulting as a filter and just look for opportunities at those types of organizations. And then for our international students, something that not everyone realizes, are these work authorization filters. And so if you are interested in looking for employers who specifically have stated they're willing to hire international students, you can check either or both of these boxes. So then you can scroll through, further filter, find those, but you know that those employers are going to be more likely to hire you because not all employers are able to hire international students. So that's a really easy way to make sure that you're not wasting your time looking at opportunities that may or may not work for you. So that's that quick job search filters part. And then another really great feature of Handshake is the employer directory. So on this top bar here, you just go over to the employers tab. This is a list of all the organizations who have connected with us. So that means at some point they've said, we're interested in hiring Webster students and alumni, so we want to make sure we have the opportunity to post positions for your students. So they may or may not have a job posted on Handshake at any given moment, but they are connected, they are interested in you. So this is a really good way if you're just trying to identify organizations. So maybe you're looking for a full-time job search and you're just not even sure where to start looking, or you know that you want to work in a particular industry, but you don't know what all employers are out there. So you can always kind of use particular keyword filters by your location, employer size, industry. So same thing as the kind of industries that we looked at with the job postings, you can filter by those as well. So if you just click healthcare, for instance, you can see that this will just alphabetically sort all of our employers who are in that healthcare field. So if you click on a particular one, it will just take you to their page. You can find more information about their organization. So I'm going to look up a specific employer because maybe I already have an idea of some employers that I'm interested in. So if I'm interested in PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, as you'll see, there are a few organizations that pop up, but in general, organizations have one page on Handshake. So you can see that they're based in New York because that's their headquarters, but there's plenty of offices for PwC throughout the country, right? So there's not going to be a PwC St. Louis, a PwC Houston. It's just this overall page. So this gives you some insight into jobs. So they have a current job opening. So if you go there, it'll just take you directly to that link. There's some basic contact information. So if you want to follow them on LinkedIn, see what they're up to, check out their own website. And some organizations will have more or less information. It just depends on how much they want to share with you about their organization. So you can see here that they have quite a lot of information listed. They've added some videos with information about their company. And then you'll also see this public staff list. So these are all people that you could potentially contact. So if you're really interested in, risk assurance and you specifically want to work at PricewaterhouseCoopers, that could be a good step to learn more, is if you wanted to reach out to Danielle and ask her a few questions about opportunities at PwC. So this is a really nice way to find humans to talk to because you can't always find that information on a job board. So I would definitely use that feature, make sure and check. So it's up to the employer if they choose to post those public staff members or how many. And then if you continue scrolling down on their page, you can find, questions other students have asked about their company, other suggestions they have, news articles that they've posted in here. So there's quite a lot of information to go through. And students and alumni can also add reviews. So if they've worked at that organization, they can give some insight into that. So as you can see here, there are kind of some aggregation results. So what are those top things that are mentioned about the organization? And then you can read individual reviews. So especially if it's a company that maybe you're not very familiar with, this is also a good way to see what that experience might be like, what other people have to say about it. And then there's a little bit newer function as well with this interviews. So people can share what that interview process was like. So whether or not maybe they got that internship for full-time position, they can share how was that, were there particular questions they were asked. So if you're trying to prep for an interview, that's another great feature there as well. And all of these things you'll notice the students from Marquette. So it's not just Webster. So you're benefiting from the whole Handshake network at universities across the country. So moving on now, I wanted to show you all a really great resource. And so if you go to this Career Center tab, this is our homepage. So you can see we have our events coming up like the Walker Edge Internship Fair. There's the appointment scheduler. So if you ever want to make a career advising appointment, you can click through that. And then there's this tab called Resources. So if you click on this, you'll see this page called Going Global. And then this is a little bit of information about it, and you will need to click directly on the link. So Going Global is a subscription service. So if you just Google it, you won't be able to access all this information. You have to click through Handshake. And so this can serve a lot of features. And so they have really good information about job searching in various locations around the world, as well as resources that are particularly helpful for our international students. So this H-1B is a directory of public information. So when companies want to hire international alumni long-term, they can request an H-1B visa that would allow them to stay longer in the country. And so part of that information is public record. So if, MasterCard hired a software developer, you can actually search that information. And so this is a database that allows you to do that. So if you're going through here, you can search by a particular job title. So let's say I want to be an accountant. So I'm going to select that as a job title. And then I want to look for opportunities in the St. Louis metro area. So it will take a second to search sometimes because there's a lot of results that it's going through. And then you can see that these are all of the organizations that have filed an H-1B application in this most recent several years. So as you scroll down, you can see these are the organizations that have done that, where they're located, the salary for those positions, and then the year that the application was filed. And so this is a really great way because as you can see here, Ernst & Young hired several accountants last year, right? And so that could give you an idea that they're clearly open to hiring international alums. And so they might be a great organization to look into because you know that if they're willing to sponsor someone, which is a longer and more complicated process, that they most likely would be open to an internship if you're wanting to do a CPT opportunity or an OPT. So I really would encourage you to check that out. And then there are other features as well, like this career guide section. And so they have that broken down by particular country and then large metropolitan areas. So we'll look at this country guide first. So maybe you have always wanted to work abroad. So there are tons of countries out there, and each one has their own particular norms and standards for hiring processes and work culture. So, I took French throughout high school. I'm really curious, what would it be like to find an opportunity to work in France? As you can see here, there's tons of information. So there's information about employment trends, resumes, interview advice, cultural advice about working in that country. So for instance, if we click on trends, obviously there's some updates here with the pandemic and how that's affected employment. And so you can see, what does that look like? How have they been affected in terms of unemployment rates, particular industries that are doing well, they're hiring more individuals. So healthcare, IT, general economic overview. So this is a really comprehensive source of information and a great place to start. And then you can tab through any of these particular sections. So if you want to find some information about application materials, because resumes definitely have different emphasis and different formatting throughout the world. So it gives you kind of some key points here to think about, like length, including a photo is something that would be suggested for applying to work in France, but that's certainly not something that you would do in the US, right? So by looking up this information, you can make sure that any applications you're sending are going to be in an appropriate format for them. So there's tons of good information there, but there's also information for the US too. So maybe, you're in St. Louis and you just have always wanted to work in New York, but you don't really have any connections there. So this is a good way to find information for that too. So all of those kind of same areas that you saw with the country guides, you can also see, a general employment trend for New York. And what are those key industries? Some Fortune 500 companies, salary information, and then some of those same tabs about, H-1B companies, information about interviewing, where to find particular networking groups, make connections with folks who are already living in that area. So if you are planning on relocating, this is a great first step to learn more information. And I won't cover everything else, but there are definitely other features on here as well. So they also have an employer directory search and other postings. So we're going to go ahead and go back to Handshake now. So we'll just go back to kind of our overall landing page. And now we're going to look at this Q&A tab. So this is a way for students and alumni to ask questions. So these could be Webster students or these could be other university students. So as you can see, there's people asking about, what are some career paths for a theater major? And so people can choose to share their experience. So this is somebody who's worked in the industry, they've worked in dance and dramas. So they're sharing their perspective, other related types of information. So this is a good way to kind of crowdsource some questions where you might not have personal connections, but you want to benefit from the experiences of others. And so you can obviously type in any particular keyword about companies, internships, and then there's these common topic areas over here too. So if you don't find a question, you can always add that in and you can choose whether you want it to be anonymous or if you want to include your name on that. And then another kind of related feature is the Students tab. And so this allows you to look at other students in the Handshake network, see their profiles. So, maybe you're just wondering what types of options are out there. If I'm an English major, what do people do with that? You know, not everyone who gets an English degree is an English teacher. So you can specify if you want it to be Webster students only, alumni. So that just means anyone who's graduated already. It's not just Webster specific there. Particular major. So, you know, maybe I want to see what psychology students are doing. And then if they work at a particular company. So that's also great if you want to find some connections for an organization you're particularly interested in. And then you can kind of get a sense, look through there, or look at a particular profile. And so we'll just click on this person. And as you can see, you'll get this pop-up, because to see other student profiles, you have to have a community privacy setting. So that means that employers can see your profile as well as those other students and alum. So it's up to you if you want to do that. So that will just change your privacy setting, and then you can see. So what types of opportunities have they had? Where do they work? And then you have the opportunity to message them as well. So if you see like, oh, this is an organization I really want to work at, then you can always do that. So this is just another way to kind of network, find potential connections, and get some ideas for what you could possibly do with your degree and your career path. So I know this was kind of a really quick glance at all of these main areas I talked about, but as you can see, there's a lot of ways for you to explore employer connections that we have through Webster, those international career guides through Going Global, advanced search filters. And these are really just ways to make sure that you're making the system work for you. Because this is a resource that we think is really beneficial. And so the more that you spend time with it and really use this actively in your search, it can really kind of help you get to that next level. And then of course, you know, we have all of our events here in the events tab. So anything that we're hosting, like this event today, or our career fair coming up, but employers can also post too. So, you know, as you can see here, there's some information sessions about what it's like to work at particular companies. So if you're interested in, you know, what it's like to work at Goldman Sachs, that's a great way to connect with folks, because that often gives you that opportunity as well to talk to a human. So if you have questions, you can find those if you haven't been able to get answered through the Q&A or researching online. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Rebecca. So if you all have questions or you were confused by anything, please let me know and I can address that.
Yep, exactly. So if you have questions about some of the features Handshake or Going Global offers, please feel free to type that into the chat. We do have a few minutes before our time is up to address those questions, or any other questions that you may have about kind of the services that our office provides. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to get those into the chat. And Carrie, thank you for, oh, okay, we have a question. I'd like to know how to access Going Global. Again, could you show that again? They missed it.
Absolutely, yep. So this is your main landing page when you log into Handshake, right? So in this top right corner, you're gonna see the Career Center tab. So you'll click on that, that will take you to our page. And so this resources tab is where you're gonna find Going Global. So you just click on this link here, and then this gives you some information about what is Going Global, and then you can just click on any of the links and it will take you directly there, and kind of log you in so you can see any of this information.
Great. Thanks for sharing that again. I will just note Handshake also has an app. And I believe all of these features are available on that app version as well. So I don't know if you've checked that out, Carrie, but.
Yeah, so most of those kind of key things like the employee directory, the Q&A, like things like that, they're all accessible to you through the app. Some of like the going global, I haven't tried to navigate that on a mobile device just to know how easy it is to click through or not. But yeah, any of those key features should be available to you in that format as well.
So we have another question. How often are employers looking at public profiles in Handshake?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say it's not something that is going to constantly be happening. So I think for most employers, they tend to search for students for a couple of reasons. So one of those is, if they have a very unique position that they're filling. So maybe they're looking for somebody with a particular skill set or major that's not very common. And so in those instances, they might have a little bit harder time finding qualified applicants. So that is often a way that they will use that to say, okay, we're looking for cybersecurity students because that's not a program that every university has. And so that's a great way to fill that. Or like I said, sometimes kind of smaller companies, they may not be as well known, they're not the PwC or Boeings of the world, so they might not be getting as much student interest or applications. So they're kind of looking through to see if there are individuals that they want to reach out to. So, I wouldn't expect that for you to be contacted by employers on a regular basis, but it definitely does happen. And so I think if you have your profile filled out, it's just another way to kind of put yourself out there.
Yeah, the follow-up to that was kind of the importance of keeping your profile updated. And I will note that current students will have at least their academic information updated from Webster's student data system. So we're importing student data every single night. So like if your major changes, that will update in Handshake, or your GPA. But all of the other pieces like past jobs, you would need to put in there yourself. But what are your thoughts on that, kind of keeping it updated, especially, after graduation as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would just make that something that you kind of periodically do. So, every time you get a new position, that you're putting that in there, that you're adding in. So some of those sections of your profile, like your skills, particular coursework that you've taken, maybe, I would just make a plan to kind of do that like every semester, that you're making sure things are updated, any of that information is there, because something like that could be a reason why an employer clicks on your profile. If they're searching by skill sets or searching by experiences, that can be a way that they find you. And if you're applying to opportunities through Handshake, then they can see that information as well. So you want that to match up with whatever that resume is you're sending to them.
And then how long do alum have access to Handshake?
Yeah, so good news, you have access for really as long as you want to use Handshake. So it does not go away after you graduate. After you graduate, there is an opportunity to change your login from the Webster. So, if you choose not to use your Webster any email anymore, you want to change it to a personal, you can do that after you graduate, because then you're not changing your major or any of those things that would be updated in our system. So yeah, it's really up to you how long you want to use it. So definitely I would consider, still logging in after you graduate, that full-time job search process, because things like, career fair, events, that employer research is likely helpful to you, even if you're a little bit more into your career.
Great. Just a procedural question for watching this recording later. Yes, for those who are included or who have attended today, we will be sending you the presentation materials as well as a recording link for this program. And then we'll also be uploading this to our YouTube channel, so it will be accessible moving forward for people to view if you've missed part of it, or you want to rewatch some of the steps that Carrie walked us through earlier. All right, well, we are at 12:30, which is our ending time. If you have other questions, you are always welcome to contact our office. Thank you so much, Carrie, for sharing all of the ins and outs of Handshake with us today. As I mentioned at the beginning of our session, that email with the presentation materials and recording link are going to be sent to your email address associated with your Handshake account. Our next web event is going to be Ask Us About Resumes. And so that's going to be an interactive question and answer session. And our career advisors will be able to, address questions that you have about resumes. It's really going to be directed by you as the students and alumni. So that'll be on February 3rd at 12 p.m. Central Time, and you can find more information about that session and the registration details in the events section of your Handshake account, which you should now be very familiar with. So we are looking forward to sharing that with you, and we want to just thank you for joining us today and hope you have an excellent rest of the day. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. And like Rebecca mentioned, you'll have all of that information to access later, as well as some Handshake help articles too, to learn more about those features. Have a great day.
Bye.